Welcome everyone, and thanks for joining us to go over the upcoming fan efficiency regulation and how it will impact our furnace offering. My name is David Madsen, and I'm the Senior Manager of Product Management for Nortec Global HVAC. Today, we plan to review with you what this rule means for the industry, what our furnaces will look like starting in July, and the product offering that will be available. But first, I'd like to introduce Jeremiah Landers, another product manager for Nortec.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jeremiah Landers, Product Manager for Residential Furnaces for Nortec Global HVAC. I've been in the HVAC industry for 8 years, starting as a territory sales engineer with Sporlan Valve. I started at Nortec 5 years ago as a project engineer, developing 14-SEER package equipment and working on the ultra-low NOx development. One of our highest core values at Nortec is safety. Today's safety tip is don't ignore line of fire safety. What is line of fire? Line of fire is a term that refers to when workers place themselves in harm's way by the type of work they perform. It is essentially the path an object will travel. A great example of this would be pulling equipment and tools onto a roof. Those on the ground below could be considered in the line of fire and at risk of injury from anything falling. Awareness of line of fire safety is your first defense. Today's Lunch and Learn will cover the new Fan Efficiency Regulation, or FER, and how Nortec is meeting DOE's requirements. Please remember, as we discuss FER today, to submit your questions in the upper right-hand corner so we can address those at the end of the presentation. What is FER? To understand why our industry is under this new regulation, let's review what we currently see today. Many furnaces today are equipped with standard induction motors, or PSC motors, which operate around 60 to 65% efficient. To obtain the required efficiency regulation, the industry will be shifting to electronically commutated motors, or ECMs, which can operate around or above 80%. This new efficiency standard will reduce power consumption by as much as 46% and is estimated to save U.S. consumers more than $9 billion on power bills through 2030. FER will regulate a furnace fan power consumption based on 3 applications: heating, cooling, and circulation. Our response to this regulation has included dedicating resources to review and test units to meet and in most cases exceed regulations. This process includes moving our PSC cost-effective line of furnaces to a 5-tap ECM. Our premium lines will continue to remain with fixed speed or variable speed. Pictured is an example of our ECM 5-speed blower motor plug. Each of the 5 taps are programmed to run the motor at different airflows. These speeds are designed for each furnace to include a fan speed, a factory select cool, a factory select heat, and additional speeds designed to match cooling applications. Another frequently asked question is what some of the similarities and differences a contractor may expect for an FER compliant unit. For a furnace control board, the interaction and speed select switch remain the same with a low, medium high, and high speed selection available. The minor differences you will see on the control board will include low voltage relays in place of the existing high voltage relays. Further instructions, including wiring the 5th speed on the blower motor and blower curves, will be laid out in the unit's installation instructions. With the addition of an ECM motor, many improved features are available. With capabilities to program each motor at the time the unit is manufactured, it allows a wider range of CFM delivered in each application versus your generic PSC. Additionally, the ramping rate for an ECM provides a quieter unit startup than the previous PSCs, which started at full speed. ECMs also do not require capacitors, one less part to maintain. Due to FER regulation, the blower performance charts will now include both cooling and heating. Heating airflows will display CFM and temperature rise for FER accepted heat speeds. Some speeds are no longer permissible due to the rule and will be grayed out and removed. The second table for cooling airflows shows corresponding CFM for all 5 taps, including those not listed in the heat table. This example shows what can be expected for a typical 80% series furnace with an ECM. What is the timeline for these regulations? Starting July 3, 2019, all furnace manufacturers must produce FER-compliant furnaces. Units made prior to July 3rd will still be allowed to be sold and installed. The next portion of the presentation will dive into the transition each product line will see. First, residential product nomenclature changes slightly to include a motor technology character. From the image, you can see that this will be one of three letters: V for variable speed, F for fixed speed, or T for a 5-tap ECM. The next image details the change to each product family offering on the residential furnace product. For single-stage product, G7SA, G7SK, and G7SC will all remain the same inputs you have today. G7SD models will eliminate the FG models. G7SL series will be discontinued and replaced by G7SM. The G7SM series will eliminate 118,000 BTU with options to order that unit in the G7TN series. For two-stage products, G7TA, G7TC, and G7TN will move F and P series to variable speed only. K series will utilize a 5-tap ECM, and the M120 will be discontinued. For the G7TK series, only variable speed will be offered while also eliminating the 140,000 BTU input. A high-capacity downflow furnace can be ordered in the G7TN series. The G7TE series will discontinue the M120 series. This information will also be detailed in a product bulletin going out in the next week or two. For our packaged product offering, all gas pack and dual fuel units will continue to be offered with minor literature changes. As a reminder, FER does not impact AC or heat pump units. Next, David will discuss manufactured housing and electric furnace FER updates.
Thanks, Jeremiah. Just as a reminder, please submit all questions into the upper right-hand corner of the screen. Similar to the residential furnaces, manufactured housing is also impacted by the FER requirement. Nortec wanted to take this federally required change to improve our electric furnace beyond just the motor requirement. After listening to our customer feedback and competitive comparison, we focused on the wiring and controls to simplify the installation and service of the unit. First, let's go over the new SKUs. The image you are looking at now is the new model nomenclature for the electric furnace line. We are moving to the E7 series and are including the orientation and if a coil box is factory installed in the 4th character. After that, the model is exactly the same as today, except all furnaces will have a revision at the end starting with 1. This will allow Nortec to make a change if necessary, instead of having to update the entire generation. This next table is the SKU transition. As I mentioned earlier, we will not be differentiating in the series number whether the unit comes with or without a factory-installed coil box, as we do today with the E5 and E6 lines. All capacities will remain except the 23 kW 5-ton option. While these furnaces aren't used often, we do recognize the need for them, so a motor kit will be available if that airflow level is needed. Moving on to the product improvements of this furnace, there's a lot to talk about. The largest change is using the constant torque control board from the residential air handlers we sell. This board allows for 16 cooling speeds instead of the 4 offered today. A control like this enables the installer to set the airflow specifically for the application's need, whether that means high static duct, large cooling capacity, or slightly lower airflow for dehumidification. This control also has a 7-segment display instead of a blinking LED light for diagnostic capability. The display will always show one of the following images, which signal if the unit is in standby, cooling, heating, fan circulation speed, dehumidification mode, or if a motor fault has occurred. There is also an over-temperature fault that causes the unit to completely shut down, and a lockout when more than 10 faults have occurred. The lockout lasts for 1 hour. You will notice there are 2 display images on the table. This is because the lights will be rotated 180 degrees depending on the orientation of the furnace. This simplification will allow contractors to install the equipment more quickly, service the unit in the field correctly and more easily, and provide better comfort to the homeowner. The next big change that has occurred is the elimination of the white AC relays. Instead, we are transitioning to a 2-pole DC relay. This change was allowed by the improved control board and will simplify service and increase reliability in the unit. It also significantly cleans up the wiring on some of the larger heating capacity models. You will notice in the wiring that each high voltage circuit in the unit will have a unique color wire. In the past, we have used black and red, which was to keep it consistent with 115 volt units with high voltage and neutral. Because on a 230 volt electric furnace all lines are hot, there really is no need to have a different color wire on each side of the circuit. On the new furnaces, the different circuits are either red, black, yellow, and violet. Now let's look at the manufactured housing gas furnaces. Like the 96% MG2S furnace launched this winter, the new gas furnace will use the same model nomenclature. These changes allow Nortech, as well as the distributor and contractor, to know exactly the features of the furnace from the model. This image is the nomenclature showing the generation, capacity, orientation, number of stages, and if there's a coil cabinet factory installed. The next table shows all the new 80% AFUE models being offered, as well as the legacy models you buy today. Because of the FER requirement, we will no longer have a 2 to 3 ton M1MB and a 2 to 4 ton M1MC furnace, and instead combine them into one. This made sense because the larger motor was required to meet the FER regulation. The other change is the 90,000 BTU furnace needed to be reduced to 85,000 BTUs. This change is only a difference of 4,000 BTUs of output and should not impact the comfort the homeowner feels once installed. The control boards for these furnaces are essentially the same in terms of functionality. Visually, there are some changes to the components that is only to interact correctly with the ECM motor. The input and output locations are all in the same location. This means the blower speed selection will be just like it is today. There will be a heating and cooling tap and different color wires that cause the motor to run at different speeds. When changing those speeds, just unplug the heating or cooling tap wire and plug in whichever wire will create the desired airflow. These airflow speeds can be found in the installation instruction of the furnace. Hopefully you found this explanation of the FER regulation interesting and informative. It will be a transformative change to the industry that all furnace manufacturers must comply with. I highly recommend that all distributors have some training classes in June and July to explain the improvements before heating season, and that all contractors attend some classes as well. Training will be the key to taking advantage of this change. As a reminder, the FER implementation date is July 3rd, meaning manufacturers will no longer be able to produce the legacy style furnaces after that. Any inventory in distributor or manufacturer's warehouses will continue to be able to be sold into the market. A bulletin will be sent out in the next week or so, clearly explaining the transition of each SKU and what the new offering will be. I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule and hope that you will walk away from this understanding our furnace products a little bit better. Please continue to submit your questions above, and we will try to answer as many as we can. The first question here is, what questions will exist in AHRI with split air conditioners? So really what we're aiming to do on that front is make sure we have any matches that we have today in the future. We will have the potential long-term to really match quite a bit of our product offering, our new furnace product offering, with the condensers. But we're working through the engineering side of that to make sure we're making matches that make sense and really create sales opportunities in the field. So anything that exists today will continue to exist moving forward. But beyond that, at this point, we really can't commit to anything else. So the next question on here, Jeremiah, when will these SKUs be announced to the field so that they can load them into their systems?
In the next couple of weeks, we're going to release a bulletin, and that bulletin will detail what SKUs will be eliminated and which SKUs will be available, including class codes.
Okay, we have another question coming in about what CFM per ton is targeted for all the cooling applications on these furnaces.
Yeah, we're looking to target around 400 CFM per ton with each cooling tap to match the applicable tonnage. For instance, one furnace could cover 2 through 4 tons of cooling, so one tap would cover 2 tons times 400 CFM. That tap would target 800 CFM for the cooling application.
Okay. We actually have two questions coming in, so apparently this is a hot topic, but how about twinning furnaces? As we move forward on these, will that be an option or an accessory or available feature on the product?
Yeah, we'll have to look a little bit more in detail of that, but I would think that we're going to look at having the same twinning kits available.
That's right. And just to add to that too, anything that's Vichy today, so variable speed can't have a twinning kit because then the furnaces essentially fight against each other. Anything that's fixed speed will be able to. So as Jeremiah mentioned, we'll make sure to have those kits available for you for these units. But I believe they'll be the same kits that are offered today. But we'll make sure of that and include that in the bulletin when it comes out. Have a question here about will there be any type of FER compliance sticker on the exterior packaging or service panels of the new units?
Not that I'm aware of today. That's something we can look at.
Yeah, there won't be anything specifically. The models for the FER compliant units are unique, so you'll be able to tell by the model information that we go over or that we went over if it is an FER compliant model. But there won't be anything in terms of a sticker that says this unit's compliant and this one's not. That isn't a requirement of the FER regulation, and therefore, really, we just don't want to draw attention to it on the product. Jeremiah, is the blower housing itself changing at all?
Yeah, in some instances, the blower housing has to get larger to allow more airflow through the furnace. But it'll be, in terms of service, you'll have the same type of installation and removal that you enjoy today.
A few questions have come in about air handlers. And I'll go over that real quick. So the FER regulation applies to any piece of equipment where that appliance is acting as the primary heat source for the home. That means any gas furnace and any modular blowers will have to comply with that. Air handlers that have coils inside of them aren't required to comply with the FER regulation because the expectation from the DOE is that generally those are paired with heat pumps, and then the heat pump is the primary source of heat. So any B6, B or B6E or B6V air handler doesn't have to comply, but an MB7, those will have to comply. And our offering for those MB7s is that we're going to really just move entirely to the MB7VM, which is the variable speed furnace, or variable speed modular air handler, and that'll be the offering for all tonnages as well as all cabinet sizes. A lot of questions coming in, so let me work through some of these. Does the new motor offer any watt savings for improved SEER with split systems? So I briefly talked about that, about the ratings that we're going to put in. We'll make sure the ratings we have today that have ECM motors still exist in the future. Long term, we're looking at on some of the new furnaces on that's replacing the G7 SAs, if there's opportunity there to put ratings out there. Those have to go through our engineering and psychometric labs to make sure that the testing meets the SEER requirements that we input. So initially those won't be offered, but long term you can look to see some of those being added as they make sense. Question here, Jeremiah. Total static pressure on these furnaces. What were they tested at, and what are they going to be offered at?
They're tested to a max static rating of 0.5, which is what we offer today. And then the cooling charts, the airflow charts, will be rated up to 0.8.
Great. And then will the parts for the new furnaces be grandfathered in for the legacy product?
So we will continue to offer field replacement parts, but the new ECMs will not replace a PSC motor. So if you have an older PSC furnace, you can order through parts the PSC motor replacement.
Yeah, so those motors will still be available to you, as you need. There's no There's no regulation for FER about replacement parts, so you'll be fine for any legacy product that's already in the field. We have a question here about when will these items be in stock for shipment to distributors. These items are going to be built up. We're starting to build them now and being built up in June. So depending on the model, we'll start to have inventory in July and shipment out as the regulations require. Most of these products, we're really not starting larger production orders until July, and we're just continuing our legacy product build all the way through June, as that'll be the more cost-effective furnace that's available. So that transition will really start to happen end of June, beginning in July, where we start building them at our plant in Saltillo. And then, generally a week or two after, we'll start to see product available in Poplar Bluff for shipment. Let's see. Jeremiah, do these gas furnaces have or need a 5-ton blower kit?
Not as of today. All the testing we're doing is matching, again, 400 CFM per ton is the target for the 5-ton furnace matches. So not today.
And then will your unit to parts breakdown be available ahead of time to make our changes and to place our orders? So I think really this question is about the RPLs. And will the RPLs, when do you think those will be available to the customer?
Those will be released with the product literature. So I would assume in the middle of June or before we make those available to you guys.
That's right. Will AHRI certify and list electric furnaces, air handlers in the future? At this point, not independently. Electric furnaces, air handlers in particular will not be listed independently. Electric furnaces, which is essentially what a modular blower is, those will be listed as a furnace and need to be listed with the DOE. Now, there is going to be a delay with AHRI to list those, but they will have to be listed long-term. They'll be listed in AHRI. Question here about the cabinet sizes and are they staying the same for the furnaces?
Yes. The same footprints that you are used to today will remain the same.
For the legacy product, legacy furnaces, are all of the old Nortec ECM sections themselves being obsolete? So I think by sections they really mean furnaces. Are those going to be obsolete or are they just a new controller?
In most cases, the VCs or FCs will remain the same in place. Mm-hmm. The PSC, the fan efficiency regulation, really knocks out the use of a PSC motor. So in any case you see a PSC, you will be updated to an ECM. A lot of the ECM motors today can achieve the FER ratings.
That's right. So and a lot of times those existing product that we have today, really what we have to do is update the literature. So, a lot of times the motor is going to stay the same. Some of it's going to stay the same. There will be some internal component changes, but it won't be as drastic as, for example, like our single-stage G7 SA or something like that. Question here is, please clarify if all F and P two-stage furnaces will now have a variable speed motor. So all of the P series will have a variable speed. All of the F series will be offered in variable speed, and there are some products that will have also a fixed speed offering in F. Once you get to two-stage, though, it'll all be either a fixed speed or variable speed offering. There will not be a 5-tap offering available there. So generally, all product will at least have a variable speed offering, and there are some examples where there's a fixed speed offering as well in the F series. Just general question here: when will the product literature be available? Jeremiah,
that should come towards the middle of June as we populate and release these products for production.
Mm-hmm. Let's see. There's a question here about the the FER pre-build that we offered to all of our distributors, and how this is affecting, how the launch will affect the pre-build and things like that. Just to, high level answer that question, if you participated in the pre-build, that's the product that we're building now. And so, you will have received at least one shipment from that pre-build, and there's, I believe, another one coming in July, and then the third one will be in October. So that product will keep an inventory for you and be delivered to you on time. If you need more product from that, you'll need to order the FER compliant SKU. And as we mentioned, that bulletin will be going out next week. So, if your forecast is exceeding what you thought it was going to be, the FER compliant product will have to be ordered starting in July. We have a question here about for future product. Is there any plans to have static pressure test ports or plugs on the split cabinets? I'm not sure, Dana. This is from you. I'm not sure exactly what you're talking about there. If you're talking about the actual split unit, or if you're talking about on the furnace. But I'll be able to reach out to you and contact you directly to make sure we get an answer to that question. Another generic question, Jeremiah, for you. Do we expect any problems with zoning on the new furnaces?
No, it would be similar to what you expected today, where the CFM delivered in the outlet of the furnace will be the same. It's just how the air flow is delivered.
Yeah. The only time you run into any problem there would be with variable speed, because the variable speed blower will fight the zoning that you have if it's in the ductwork. But like you said, Jeremiah, I mean, most product we sell today is fixed speed ECM, and those will have no problem. I mean, they'll be able to deliver airflow in a zoning system just like product does today. So questions are starting to slow down a little bit, so I'd encourage you, again, if you have any, upper right-hand corner and send anything in, because this is the best opportunity to get those questions answered directly and really help everybody in the Nortec team know how this change is going to affect them. Question here about having TSLs be prioritized. This is something that the product management team, appreciate the feedback. And we can really try and make that an effort to get out as early as possible. Engineering has now given us most of the information we need, and so we can make that a priority for our team to have up on the literature website and be available under the right model and the right brand. Let's see, anything else here? Jeremiah, you want to talk about Title 24 with the new furnaces?
Sure. So Title 24 requirements of 0.58 watts per CFM. Almost exclusively the ECMs meet this requirement and exceed it quite well, especially on your lower tonnages. And then the other target of 350 CFM per ton minimum is we've spoke earlier today about our engineering targets are 400 CFM per ton in every application we can get.
Okay. Which that means also that we'll no longer need those specific Title 24 units. Is that right?
Correct.
Okay.
So now the Title 24 SKUs will roll into just your whatever G7 furnace that you're used to purchasing.
Great. Which, should really help out all distributors, especially those out on the West Coast. You won't have to carry two anymore, and I think everyone would appreciate that. Question here about impact to energy savings, and is there a way we can communicate that to homeowners? Jeremiah, you want to take that one?
Yeah. So one way you can sell an FER compliant furnace to the homeowner would be to show them the energy savings. Obviously, they won't see that till heating season rolls around and they see their electric bill. But generally speaking, these ECM motors are going to save around 40% efficiency on your electric bill. So when you have to give the price increase to the homeowner and they're used to the cost-effective PSC furnace, one great sell point is the savings they're going to see through the life of the furnace.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's really that energy savings, right, will be on the electric portion, obviously, and not the gas side. So,
Right.
So, you do want to be careful there, but it is a substantial energy savings for the homeowner, depending on the market. It's also something where you'll see some savings on the summer, too, and not just the winter, because obviously that same motor blows the air through the home in the summer. Question here for manufactured housing specific. We mentioned the testing was done at 0.5 static for residential product. For manufactured housing, it's really run at 0.3. So equipment that we're building, the 80% single stage, the 95% two stage, we're rating them both at residential statics and at manufactured housing statics, and that way they'll be able to be sold in both applications. But it is important to note that the manufactured housing requirement is 0.3, whereas the residential requirement is 0.5. Question about the LP kits for the furnaces. Dive into that one a little bit.
Yeah, those should still remain the same. We're not updating or changing the gas application, so those should still be the same. The FER update really deals almost exclusively with the blower and the blower motor and how that air is delivered over the heat exchanger.
That's right. Thanks for that, Jeremiah. And just to reiterate one more time, all the manufactured housing furnaces will be offering. So the E7 and all of the MG series furnaces will be able to be sold in manufactured housing and residential homes, hence modular homes, which are under the residential standard. We don't intend for our manufactured housing furnaces to be sold into regular stick-built. They're not really designed for that or intended for that. But for modular homes that are under the residential standard, yes, all the furnaces will be able to be sold into those markets. Let's see. There was a question here about pricing. I'll cover that real quickly. Pricing will come out once the bulletin goes out. Our aim is to always have pricing available on eNora. So bulletin that Jeremiah mentioned that we're going to be sending out next week, that'll have a SKU by SKU breakdown of, here was the old legacy and then here's the new. It'll also have class code on there. At that point, you should be able to go onto your eNora account and identify what that pricing is for the new furnace. So, there may be some exceptions because it's a really significant SKU turnover. If there are those exceptions, please let your area sales rep know, and then we'll work to get those fixed as quickly as possible. But, our goal is to make sure that pricing is available with the launch of or with the announcement of the bulletin, excuse me. So it looks like we're settling down on some of these questions. I really appreciate all your guys' time. Jeremiah and I will review these questions, and if we missed anything, make sure to respond directly to you and get those questions answered. But I really appreciate you coming in and spending the time to be with us this afternoon, because this is a huge change for the industry and a big change for Nortec. So we want to make this as smooth as possible for not only us, but as all of our distributors and contractors that buy our product. So if there are any questions, please reach out to the area sales leader or us directly and let us know. But again, appreciate your time and really looking forward to talking with you guys in the future.